You know, I really love this opening so much. It's one opening that I can recommend trying out in both blitz and classical matches. And I believe that you would definitely love it if you start using it. Now, before I tell you the name of this opening, it begins with d4. Here we are playing as white. And then black responds with pawn to d5. I mean, it doesn't matter even if they start with knight to f6 because pawn to d5 will come anyways. So right at this point, white can choose to enter into many different lines and variations. For example, white has an option to play the Queen's Gambit in this position, or the London system with bishop f4 and knight f3. Sometimes white can also start with knight to f3 before playing bishop f4, still leading to the London system. White can also choose to play the Kohler system with pawn to e3 and bishop d3, then pawn to c3. I mean, there are just so many things that white can do with a queen's pawn opening. And instead of playing all those standard moves, here I recommend that you play knight to c3. Now this is still called the queen's pawn game, but the Chigorin variation. You can also play the Chigorin variation with black pieces, but in this introductory video, I'm only looking at this from white's perspective. So the Chigorin variation, named after Mikhail Chigorin, is a rarely played move by masters, super grandmasters, club players, and even tournament players nowadays. So this move may often transpose to other lines, and if knight to f6 in this position, for example, then bishop g5 results to the Ritcher Veresov attack, which is the main area of my meat in this introductory video on this particular opening. Now please note that I'm calling this an introductory video because I intend to release a full tutorial video on this opening in the near future. And that's why I encourage you guys to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of those interesting videos. And don't forget to hit the like button and leave your comments down below in the comment section. So after I show you a few lines, I am going to challenge 2 random chess players on Lichess just to demonstrate how powerful this opening is, and also as a build up for the next project that I'll start working on in the near future. Okay, so with this opening, the idea is that after black plays knight to f6, we want to push pawn to e4 right away and castle long. I mean, castling long is one of the primary goals in this opening because we want to start attacking from the king side by pawn storming. Watch. So here, the top played move according to the Lichess database and the Masters database is knight to f6. Now, in this position, bishop to f4 is known as the Rapport-Jobava system, which is one of the variations that most London players are playing nowadays. But we are not here for this boring system yet. As I said before, this video is only about a Ritcher Veresov attack with bishop g5. So from here we are going to play bishop g5, which is finally the Ritcher Veresov attack. Now the Ritcher Veresov attack is not the common attack we see. White plays early bishop g5 while aiming at the knight on f6, preparing to damage black's pawn structure. And black's most common response is pawn to e6 in this position, but other moves are seen as well. The attack can lead to a sharp attack and black has to play carefully. So we see black responding with moves such as pawn to c6, c5, e6, bishop f5. But according to my experience with this opening, knight bd7 by black seems to be more solid. Anyways, we are going to talk about this in another video. So let's just say black plays a normal natural move. A logical response here, pawn to e6. Now after pawn to e6, what I like doing right away is to stop black's dark squared bishop from coming to the b4 square, pinning my knight. And that's why you see in most of my games I like playing pawn to a3 first. But that's not a prerequisite. The main move in this position is just pawn to e4. But you can also consider playing pawn to f3 and then you play pawn to e4. See how flexible this attack is. So pawn to e4 is what I recommend anyways. The idea is just to advance the e4 pawn to e5. So anyways, if d takes on e4, you just take back the pawn with the knight. And in this position, the most common move by far is bishop e7. Now wait a second. Am I just making these things up? No, you can check the Ritcher's database again. You will find that this is an opening which is also played by super grandmasters, and some of the high-profile games which you can find are the games between Magnus Carlsen and Grishuk, which was played in 2017, and the list goes on. So this is one attack that I would recommend, especially for some of you guys who are looking for something new. The whole idea here is just to trade off our dark squared bishop because we do not need it in the Veresov attack anyways. And this kinda looks like the Trompowsky attack, where we trade off our dark squared bishop as early as move 2 or move 3. Now watch, this is how tricky this opening is, because the right move here, according to Stockfish and according to theory, is that black should take with his g-pawn, accepting to damage his pawn structure on the king side. And maybe someday it should look forward to castling long, but that is not easy. Instead, you are going to see most of your opponents taking with their bishop, eyeing the d4 square, and the whole idea here was just to trade off our knight again. And after queen takes f6, you play queen d3, idea is just to castle long and be fast in development. Knight to c6 attacking your pawn on d4, just play knight f3, a developing move, and if they castle short, here you just castle long, and the plans are very simple. You might see rook d8, or just play pawn to c3, king b1, your queen will go to the e4 square, backed up by the light squared bishop to d3, and you will start pawn storming as early as possible. Now there's a lot of things that you need to look at with this opening, there's a lot of lines, but in this video I'm only showing you this. And from here, it's now time to challenge some random chess players on Ritcher so that I can show you how this opening works in practical terms. And just to tell you beforehand, I do not know the players that I'm going to be paired with. These won't be paid artists, and the aim is not to expose them, but just to try out how this opening works. And before I take you to Ritcher's, you can also check out my courses in the description down below, suitable for beginners and intermediate level players. That is if you want to take your game to the next level and start playing like an advanced player or a master. Okay, now here we go. Okay, now let's do justice. Oh, I'm playing against a 2200 rated player. So d4, if d5, knight c3, or knight f6. Okay, knight c3, let's go. The Veresov. So now this is the Chigorin variation now, you guys. So, wow, c5. What can I do? Can I push pawn to d5? I think so. d5. More like in a Benoni structure. So what's that? That's more like a gambit, pawn to b5. I have plans to go e4 and bishop g5 here. Let me just take the free pawn. And bishop b7. Queen f5 doesn't work. I have c4, knight c3. What is black going to play here? So I just want a free pawn. If queen f5, I have bishop d2. Oh, g3. Here I like playing h4, h5. If knight takes, I take with my rook. So let's see. Oh, d6, h5. If knight takes, I'll take with my rook. A common sack in this line. So knight takes on h5. Pawn takes. I have queen there, so I play e4 first, opening the way for the queen. So I'll take on h5 with my queen eyeing the weak f7 square. Oh, knight bd7. Okay, let's go bishop g5 first. Idea is to take on d6 since the e7 pawn is pinned to the queen. So black can take. I also have intentions of taking on h5 with my queen. Let's see, if s6, I can take. If f6, I can take on d6 with my knight. The pin on the pawn on e7 is pinned to the queen, black's queen. So you guys, if you keep on putting more pressure on your opponent, they are likely to blunder. Oh, bishop g7. So let's take on d6. Check, aiming to take the light squared bishop. What? Blundering the queen on the spot. This is what I told you guys. The more you keep on pressurizing your opponent, the more they are likely to blunder. So if bishop takes on b2, I have rook b1 and king d1. Now this is a 2200 rated chess player, playing like this, not by his will, but by my will. Check king d1, knight e5. So now the bishop is hanging. It's a 22-18 rated chess player, guys. Wow, so my opponent just resigned. I was about to take his light squared bishop. And this is what I said about this opening, you guys. It is so confusing that most of your opponents are not even prepared for it. So this is how you play the Veresov attack or the Ritcher Veresov attack, and I hope you guys are going to give it a try. So this game just ended in how many moves? 16 moves, 22-18 rated chess player. So the game ended so fast and I wasn't expecting that anyways. So let's see where my opponent went wrong anyways, or where I went wrong. So as you can see here, I didn't make any blunders, zero inaccuracies, only some mistakes, and these are the mistakes that Stockfish are pointing to. Look, pawn to h4 and rook takes on h5 is not a mistake. On human level. Even though Stockfish says this is a mistake, look at the eval. It says equal position. So that was not a blunder. Come on. So sometimes Stockfish doesn't just know openings. At least you can see that my opponent made one blunder and 4 inaccuracies here. And while I didn't have any inaccuracies, I didn't have any blunders. Only mistakes. Simple mistakes. So before I take you to another game, please consider subscribing and remember to check out my courses in the description down below. Okay, let's play another game. Okay, here we go again. Oh, I'm playing against a 23-67 rated chess player. So d4, let's go d4 again. d4, if d5, knight c3, you know the story. If knight to f6, okay, so let's go knight c3, the Chigorin variation. Knight f6, we go bishop g5. If knight e4, I have pawn to h4. So, e6. So we take the knight, and I am planning to play pawn to e4. So I have intentions to castle long, so pawn to e4 first. If takes, I'll take. I was supposed to play pawn to a3. Preventing bishop b4, yes. So let's just go e5 and then a3 next. a3 is coming next. Queen h6. So queen h6. Let's go queen f3. Queen f3, so that if bishop takes on c3, I take with my queen. I don't want to mess up my pawn structure. Castle short. Let's start pawn storming g4, g5, h4. So that's the idea there. Knight c6 attacking my pawn on d4, so let's play knight g e2. h4 is coming next. f5. Can I take with n%? Or maybe I just push pawn to g5, trying to open the g file for the rook. The rook will be defended by my knight, so let's play. Can I play pawn to h4? Or rook g1? h4 invites queen g4, so rook g1 here. Let me utilize an open file. The open g file up to the g7 square. What is that? Did I make a mistake? My queen is under attack. Knight takes on d4. I can still ignore that since my rook is defended by my e knight. So queen d3 probably. Queen d3 also attacking the knight. Because the thing is that the knight, I'm attacking the knight and my rook is defended by my e knight. So yep. Now, the reduction theory, I need to start exchanging pieces. I need to start trading off all my pieces. So queen takes on d4, attacking the bishop and the queen. Okay. So I'm just trying to simplify the game. Let's take the bishop. Queen takes bishop. So now you can... Okay, now this is losing. This is losing. I think that was just a new way of resigning. Just taking one more piece and resign. So this is a 23-67 rated chess player and the game ended in 14 moves. 14 moves. The previous game ended in 16 moves. You can see how miracles work, you guys. Okay, so you guys can now see how dangerous this opening is, and I bet you're going to start trying it from today. Again, don't just watch these videos, please. Consider subscribing and hit the like button. This encourages me to keep on making more wonderful videos. So, where did my opponent go wrong, or where did I go wrong? You can see again, I don't have any blunders. I only had 3 questionable inaccuracies and 1 mistake, whereas my opponent had 3 blunders and 2 unquestionable inaccuracies. So in the eyes of Stockfish and like a human being, this is what is considered to be a mistake. I mean, pawn to g4 is a common pawn storm in this position. We are planning to go g5 and h4. That's a common thing that even super GMs like doing. Another move is pawn to g5. I mean, Stockfish wanted me to take on f5, but I just wanted to have an open file, an open g file for the rook. So that wasn't much of a stretch and I did not have any blunders. The next video will be a full tutorial on this opening.